Hi,
Hi,
who are you?
I am Almar and I'm an addict.
What kind of addict?
Attention addict. I love attention. Any attention.
And what are we doing here?
We're making a podcast.
What is that about?
It's about the things like people's stories, how they ended up where they are, ended up doing what they're doing. And yeah, it was supposed to be about something else, but I ended up with this.
Who are those people?
These are my friends. Yeah, basically my network, but because I wanted to make a show about me, but I didn't really have anything to talk about. So I ended up looking at the network. The network was interesting, so I kind of thought, okay, I can maybe make something with this.
So, do you have already a name for this podcast?
Yeah, it's called The Bunker. How the hell did we end up here?
And how is it connected to the theme?
How the hell did we end up here? So basically people's stories and how they went from A to B and then to C, and with coincidences, decisions, traumas, basically anything that moves you to the direction or the point where you are.
So, how often are you gonna have this podcast?
I'm not sure, but maybe like two times a month, 3 times a month.
So, do you take yourself seriously enough? Do you have some sponsors?
Yeah, like every other professional podcast, then of course I have sponsors. I have the Oat Bar. That's the greatest thing in Karlin. Sells amazing oatmeals and skyr. Everything is handmade, and it's available from 8 to 3 during the weekdays, closed on the weekends, but you can order on Volt as well. And it's a place that you really want to go. Healthy yet tasty.
Sounds
And
good.
then I have a company called Alfred. It's alfred.cz. It's a place where you can find jobs. You can set up a job watch. You can get notified whenever there's a cool job coming along. And it's a great solution for anyone who is either looking for a job or wants to change jobs, because you can find the right job without spending time looking for it. It's available in Czech, English, and Slovak. And yeah, check it out. Alfred.cz. So yeah, those are the guys. On today's episode, we're gonna talk about sex. And then we'll talk about a little bit more sex. And then we're gonna talk about how it is to be in an open relationship. My guest is Iva Rolederová, who's a psychotherapist and a couple therapist in Prague. She also was a happiness manager in a company. But the main topic is, guess what? Sex and open relationships. So stay tuned and enjoy. Iva, welcome to the bunker.
Hi, Almar. Thank you for the invite.
No problem. It's great to have you. How was your day?
My day, it's been great. I've spent it all outside on the sun. I got a little burnt, enjoying the rest of this beautiful summer that's now leaving us, sadly.
Yeah, I can see the burn. It's you're sitting in front of a kind of a reddish
Yeah.
blanket, and you fit perfectly in.
Yeah. Thank you.
Um,
Worked on it.
I was when I was preparing for this, I noticed that you mentioned a book that you read lately that's called Shallows. What the social media or what Google is doing to our brain. No, how was that?
It's not just about Google or social media. It's about the internet overall. Yeah, it's about what it's doing to our mind, to the way we are processing things and information, and how that is being dramatically changed by how much we use internet, which is a very different way of using information than previously, than compared to reading, for example. When you read a book, it requires totally different level of focus on what you're doing versus using the internet. That is what is typical for that it's shallow, as is the name of the book, and you have to switch and jump from one topic to another, and our attention is has a very different quality. And then what you find in people is that nowadays they're not able to read a book, for example, that it's an extreme effort to sit with the book and focus deeply enough that you can follow, I don't know, dozens of pages.
And is this something that you see in your line of work as a therapist? I mean, do people come with these kind of issues to you, or have they come with these kind of issues to you?
Well, it is not my specialty, but I know of people who focus in that as therapists. But yeah, people are getting a little, well, officially we don't say that they would be addict, because you can't have non-substance addiction, but they're very much used to using social media and having their phone at hand all the time. I can see it on me, right? I have my phone right
She
here on
picks
the
up the
table.
phone.
I just picked up my phone to look at what time it is, and all the pop-up notifications. They will increase our level of dopamine and endorphins and other things that'll make us happier. So basically, we are craving this feeling of attention or gratification that all those things give us.
Yeah, I was just watching a movie actually on Netflix called Social Dilemma, and I don't know if you've seen that movie. It's
No,
kind of
not
on
yet.
the same topic, and they're very much about how this attention that we're jumping from one thing to another, chasing things, can be manipulated by algorithms and used then for political purpose to share fake news, etc. And it's a scary thing. Do you worry about this? Where it ends?
Well, mostly where I see it, I worry about people's mental health, because where it impacts them is usually their feeling about themselves, right? When you see your friends and everybody around you having a stunning life, and you're just sitting home alone, sad. You're not necessarily aware that their life is as ordinary as yours, and we tend to compare our lives to whatever we see, which is a very skewed picture of people's lives out there. And also I see that they're unable to rest. For example, in the past, people would take a tram or a metro on the way to work and back. Those 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, they would just sit, look out the window, and let their mind flow, which is a very important time for us, for our well-being, and just, let the mind go on a free flow that we are not doing currently, because we are constantly busy with a phone that is basically a little computer in our hands. So I don't think we get enough rest or that time of doing nothing, and that impacts the attention, as we spoke.
Yeah,
That is a very limited resource, and social media are they're not for free. We are paying for them by our attention span.
yeah. And they're
realizing
monetizing
it.
us. We're the product.
Yep. And then you can be, little restless, maybe don't have that much patience with, people you like or other things.
They in that movie they were talking about a lot about also that the young children are seeing this as their primary way to connect to society. So they're actually delaying dating, taking a driver's license, and a lot of things that someone like me, my age, would kind of like, well, why I would never have wanted to miss out on those things. And it was really, and yeah, obviously this about the self-image and constantly being compared to something that is maybe unrealistic or isn't even how it is shown.
And also, when you have, good enough gratification online, then maybe we are not that motivated to seek that in the real, tangible world.
Yeah.
And then the impact is bigger. For example, watching porn, and now we see that young people nowadays are having a little less sex than the past generations, and they start later on in their life.
Yeah, this I don't know. I obviously I'm a dinosaur and I don't like this, but yeah, I can't. I don't see a happy ending on this somehow. It's scary.
I'm still hopeful. I think it's a tool that we are just learning how to use, so that we're the masters of it and not the
Tool the
slaves.
master of us.
Yeah.
I hope you're right.
And, you know, maybe we're on some extreme side of the scale right now, but I'm hoping that we'll learn how to manage that and get some balance again.
All right. Yeah, that was just it just came to my mind when I was getting ready, and just wanted to kind of go back a little bit. You're born in 1989. That's
89, yeah.
when the wall was coming down. Where
The
was
Velvet
this?
Revolution. I was born in Opava, that is close to Poland, borders with Poland, near Ostrava. It's a mid-sized town of 60,000 people. Small, cute, safe, and kind of slow. I would say it was a nice place to live in when I was young.
And you're part of a big family, or?
Yep, I come from I would say bigger family. What it was probably important when I was growing up is that I lived in a house with my grandma and grandpa and aunt and her family. So on 3 floors there were 3 generations of people, and that was amazing. I was always surrounded by people, and also my parents were pretty social, so we would spend weekends out with, you know, those fake aunties and uncles.
So you're born in the Velvet Revolution, and that's when the wall came down. A lot of people here, they have memories of the wall, how life was before the fall of the wall, going on holiday with the parents, driving somewhere, blah, blah, blah. You don't have, obviously, those memories. But did the wall have some sort of a significance in your life?
I think it did. When I was little, very young child in 90s, that was the wild west times of the Czech Republic. You know, the people starting their businesses and being excited about the opportunities of commerce and that they could own things. So the atmosphere was hopeful but not very regulated. It was interesting to see, for example, plastic bottles coming to the Czech Republic and things like that. But I had no way of comparing that. Obviously, I haven't lived through the period of time before. So all I could hear was my parents remembering and comparing those times. And for me, it seemed like a fairy tale. It was unreal. Like life has always been the one that I had.
Yeah.
I think what is interesting is that then you kind of lose the generational overlap, right? My parents had very different childhood from mine, so they couldn't necessarily help me out that much and teach me things, because I was the very first generation of experiencing them together with them. So in a way, I was more flexible because I already grew up with let's say cell phone, while for them it only came when they were adults.
No, it's interesting. It has had such a big impact here, you know, on people's life. It's actually crazy to think about it. Like you say, it sounds like a different world before and after.
We were watching politics, but not that much. We were not very keen. We're just observing the situation. And my father, he was working abroad. He would travel with export, import, and moving stuff around.
Yeah, in the Wild West. Or Wild East. So you went through school, everything was fine, 3 generations in the house, and then when it comes to university, you pick
psychology.
And why is that?
I think I had a very naive idea about what it is. I always knew that I liked talking to people, and I was thinking, hey, if you can talk to people for a living, that's amazing. I want to do that. Why? And everybody doesn't want to do that if it's a job. So I was imagining myself sitting in an armchair talking to people about their lives.
And somebody lying on the couch.
Not a couch,
Ah,
an armchair.
okay.
Couch is old school.
Uh-huh.
And also, I felt that I don't have to decide just yet exactly what I want to do, because as a psychologist you can also work in business, you can be in marketing, you
You can
can
manipulate people's minds.
yeah you can do very many things. So in a way I was postponing my decision of what I want to become when I'm adult.
And how did it turn out to be very different than you expected? I mean, like to the studies
The studies,
already, or
no, there were classical studies. I studied at Charles University in Prague, and it's a pretty, no, I don't want to sound mean, but
yeah, please, sound
it
mean.
is not a very modern institution.
Uh-huh.
So the step from high school, from grammar school to this university was very smooth. The only difference I felt was that right now I had a lot more time at hand in a big city of Prague, which was big change in my life, moving from a small city of Opava to Prague. So in those first years, I think I was more impressed by the city and the atmosphere here, making new friends, working, because I had some part-time jobs ever since I moved in here. And the studies were interesting, but also pretty theoretical. And I think that the real education I got was much later in my first job, and then during psychotherapeutic training that I took.
Mm-hmm. So school was just something you had to do to get from one point to another in a way.
Not only parts of that where there were subjects I was just sitting through, knowing that, hey, I need to pass this to get where I want to be. At the same time, there are so many interesting people talking about interesting things rather later on in the studies, when you start choosing the particular subjects that you want to focus in and specialize in.
Yeah, and then you when you graduate, what did you do then?
That's interesting. Before I graduated, I went for Erasmus to Germany. I spent half a year in Germany, where I saw how different can it look like. The level of university there was very, very good. And then I started working. So I just landed my first job in HR, and I was just finishing the university while working already.
Was that job here in Prague or in Germany?
Yeah, it was here in Prague.
Uh-huh.
It was here in Prague. It was the HR job that was basically an accident, and I ended up spending 4 years there. And
But what kind of company was that?
It was a company providing card services for company fleets. So cards that you can pay for petrol with. And monitoring.
And you were HR or
Yeah, I started as an assistant. It was just a part-time job when I started. Then my colleague who was in HR, she got pregnant, just planned very, very quick maternity. So I stepped in. It was supposed to be 9 months, and it were 3 more years, because we got a big project and started building basically a new company. So there was a lot of hiring, setting up processes, and doing whatever.
Was this fun?
It was a lot of fun, yeah. It was a big pressure, always deadlines, but it was fun. I realized that I really liked working under pressure.
And I saw somewhere that your title there was happiness manager.
There was the one after that.
Uh-huh.
So that's when I finished after 4 years at this work, where the role became pretty big, and with potentially very, very interesting future career. But I felt that the psychologist in me calls me towards my original purpose, and that was, talking to people. So then I was looking for a job that would be closer to people, not just the very pure business side of things, like how many people we need, how much do we pay them. And I worked as a happiness manager, as you mentioned.
What's that?
That is
Someone who brings cakes to work, or
no, not necessarily. Even though sometimes that was part of the job, it meant it was also an HR role, but in a very different setting. It was in a IT startup where the company culture was very different from my previous experience. It was very relaxed, friendly. We had very good relationships with all employees, and it was a small firm as well. And the job was about really caring for people and trying to know them, know what they want, what bothers them, and help out. But I found out very, very soon that really cakes is nothing that'll make people happier. Neither is the salary. We get used to all these things. And what really matters most is if the job is good, if they like their work, if their direct manager is a cool person or an asshole.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's interesting, because
Yeah, it is.
I read some stories about the company that I've had, happiness managers and employees think that they are some personal assistants of them and ask them to go to the supermarket for them and crazy stuff like this. And I'm old school. This
Yeah.
wasn't the case when I was at work.
I didn't do that. I had philosophy that was maybe not the best there, but I was saying, hey, everyone is responsible for their own happiness, right? I'm here to make space and try for the company not stand in a way. But whether you're happy or not, at the end of the day, is really up to you. And if you don't want to be, you're not going to do anything for that, then probably I can't help you.
Mm. And this, you said earlier, this was like a sidestep or a detour, this HR thing, but it got pretty big. I mean, you had at some stage 250 employees and.
Yes, that was in the first job. Yeah, sometimes it happens. You go someplace and you're in the right place at the right time, and 6 years later you're like, wow, this was an interesting journey, but I'm ready to do something different now. Because during all these HR years I was studying to become a therapist. Basically, that's another, on top of university, there's a psychotherapeutic training of this was 4 to 5 years that I was studying. And more I remember that 18-year-old Iva who wanted to talk to people and make their life better. My focus has always been the individual and making some contribution towards that. Not on a system, compared to the system level, for example.
Yeah. So you leave the happiness position and you open your own therapeutic practice. Is that called practice, right?
Yeah, practice. Practice, we say.
And you focused on individuals and couples, counseling and therapy.
Yes, that's right.
Was that an obvious thing for you to go into? I mean, was that what called you kind of out of the HR area?
Yeah, it was. And this is it was not and one job start another, because there was again an overlap. I already started working with clients during my training, and in the past couple of years I just didn't have very many of them, and that's what changed.
So you kind of gradually grew into the therapeutic part of it. So what kind of people are these, and what kind of issues do they bring to you?
Yeah. So what connects them all is that they are people ready for some change. They are unhappy about some part of their life, and they want to have a better life. Yeah, they want to be happier. They want to have better relationships, better sex, better mood. Yeah, there are people who have some depressive or anxious symptoms. That would be a minority of my individual clients. and most of them have some relationship issues.
Mm-hmm. And how and how is it? Is it a taboo here to go to a therapist, or like is it like a, I don't know how to say it. Are people coming very late when they have tried a lot of other things, or things have gone really bad, or?
I see there is a big change. I can see a generation change. So there is one rule, basically, that when it comes to couples therapy, people come usually way too late. Unfortunately, when they've tried all the other options, they already had the same argument 20,000 times at home, and they think like, oh, this is the last resort, let's try it out. And that's usually, unfortunately, sometimes too late. Yeah.
Because they gave up.
One of them, maybe.
Uh-huh.
There is this stereotype that the wife or the female, she would complain about some things for years and he's not listening, and then when finally she kind of gives up and she resigns, that's when he notices that, oh shit, something's really going on. And that's when he is motivated enough to go somewhere, because for many people there is a stigma connected to seeking a therapist, and they come, but usually the woman is already checked out of the relationship.
But it's interesting that you say this, because I've always felt this, that somehow a woman's tolerance is actually longer than a man's tolerance, but when it's been used up to the end, there is no return.
There are no rules like that, obviously, But I have seen these cases too, and heard of them.
Yeah.
And apart from the couples therapy, I also see that younger people, they come earlier. And also the younger couples, actually. I've got a few couples that are in their early 20s, and they come to talk about whatever they need to talk about. And they're less shy, and they come before it's, festering.
Yeah, before it gets out of hand.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's interesting. So it's kind of like preventive therapy in a way.
There are even some clients who come and they're like, yeah, well, I'm going for dental hygiene. Then obviously I have to come for therapy too. And they see it as something very, very normal to do. And I'm happy to see this change.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, it's if you break your hand, you go to the doctor. If your mind is broken, you go to a therapist. Yep. But I know that in the couples therapy, you have also focused a lot on sex, and obviously that's probably one of the more sensitive subjects that couples bring.
I would say even the most sensitive.
Yeah.
The ones who come, they're already the brave ones.
Okay, and how come you went into this? What kind of got you interested in this kind of, let's say, focusing on this area?
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So first of all, it's not just sex. I say, relationships, intimacy, and sex, and it's all one thing. We could even say that sex is just another form of communication between partners, very intimate, but a communication nevertheless. And I started focusing on this because I think that the quality of our sex life has a great impact on our overall life satisfaction. And when everything works fine in this area, it's good. We're happy, and we even take it as standard. But when something goes wrong in the area of sex, then it can represent a huge black hole of energy and a lot of sadness and just overall not feeling happy. So I was thinking, hey, there are not many people who focus in this field. I have no problem to talk about it. I think it is important, and it requires more attention than it currently has, and also air the the topic. Like our society is very sexualized, but on a very superficial level. We don't really speak about those deep inner feelings and experiences that we have that are very vulnerable most of the time. And I want to make a change in this field.
And before you got into this, was there? You say there was not many in this field here, or
Well, there are, of course. I mean, Czech Republic has been very liberal for many years, so we could even say that some frontiers of sex therapy, they were here decades ago. But still, sexology lies more in hands of psychiatrists and sexologists and people who have a rather medical background, or urologist, gynecologist. And in the area of psychology, well, we have marital counselors and couples therapists, but they might focus a bit too much on the relationship side of things, not necessarily on the sex side of things.
so you're the bridge between somehow,
I'm trying
or
to.
closing the circle, let's say.
I'm definitely not the only one.
No.
Currently, I'm attending many conferences that there are in the Czech Republic, and I see that there are good people working in this field there that want to help.
And but how is this in the kind of the public field, in media and magazines? You know, is this an open topic somehow?
I think it is more and more. But depends what media you're looking at. There is a layer of media such as Blesk and tabloids and various sites for women that of course they have a tab called Sex and Relationships, but all you ever read there are 10 tips for this, 10 tips for that, and they're trying to offer ready-made solutions, but it's usually not the case.
The blowjob that saved the relationship.
Exactly. And
so, isn't this a topic that a happiness manager in a company should be very kind of interested in?
well, yes, I think so. If we take it that having a happy sex life is a part of overall happiness, then yes, absolutely. But it's not very common. But I was actually asked by one happiness manager, and I gave a talk or a workshop on communication about sex. So how to communicate about sex without awkwardness. And it was as their perk, as their like brunch and talk. So I did talk there. It was fun. Those people were very keen to learn more, and we tried some specific exercises with saying words that we don't usually say out loud. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Like what?
I asked them to use various words in a sentence. So let's say there were things like a whip, dildo, or what else? And I asked them to use them in a sentence. Just for the habit of saying it out loud, because we're often lacking the lingo. Yeah, at home we are not taught how to say this, and maybe we name our genitals by very silly names. And it's important, if you want to talk to your partner about sex, to know how to call. Is it a penis, or is it a dick? Is it a cunt, or a pussy, or something else? Whatever feels comfortable, and normalize the talk.
Yeah, that to kind of eliminate the taboo. So the couples that seek your help with sex and relationship and sex related issues, what type of things are these that they're coming with?
I would say the most common is that they stopped having sex or their sex life is not very satisfying for various reasons. But usually the story is following that they say they have a very good relationship, they love each other, they're very good friends. But after some years of being together, the spark has gone out the window and they're not having much sex lately. Sometimes one wants it more than the other, so there is a discrepancy in desire. That's very common. Another would be with men having erectile dysfunction and the psychogenic. So they don't have as good erection as they would like, and they come to fix that. Usually young men, because with older men it's often connected to some organic reason, but with the younger it's rather the psychogenic reason.
In how psycho?
Basically, performance anxiety. When you treat sex as a goal-oriented activity that has certain phases, steps, and the only right end is to have an orgasm for both parties, then it can make you very tensed about, oh, am I doing it right? Is it going to be okay? And the biggest killer of pleasure, from what I'm seeing with my clients, is being in your head. That is a big thing. So also people who suffer for anxiety, for example, it's very typical for them. They would have things, oh, is this good enough? Is it going to be okay? They worry a lot. And these worries are exactly the things that will not make your penis work. In sex, it's very important that you're enjoying the moment, your body, you feel the sensations you have everywhere, and not think about your performance. That can kill it.
And so we're saying couples where there's lack of sex or difference in needs of sex, and erectile dysfunction. What more?
Also, infidelity. That is a big reason for people to come to therapy, and that is what throws them into crisis. So infidelity. Then we talk about sex. What did it mean for the one who was cheating? How is their sex life, etc. And that would be one big topic that is probably way too complicated to go into much detail right here. Another type of clients are also the ones who are not, who are interested to seek different options or different alternatives when it comes to their relationship and sex life. So those are usually the ones who are interested in non-monogamous relationships, and they want to talk about, hey, how do we set up the rules? What does it mean? How do we do that?
And these like how is it when you sit all day and listen to people talk about these kind of things? Does it what effect does it have on you?
Well, I'm usually very tired afterwards, because as we spoke about the attention in the beginning, this work is amazing, but it's quite tiring, because when I'm there with a client, I give them my 100% full attention, which is amazing. I get into flow. I don't, watch other things, but then I can get quite exhausted. But that's the technical part of the deal. I think what you're rather asking about is what influence the topics and the content has on my life.
Yeah, how can you go home and just be excited about meeting your boyfriend when,
Yes, I perceive more the level of tiredness, and sometimes I've got some additional thoughts about what's been going on, and then I like to talk about it with my partner. Well, in a anonymous, of course, anonymous way. I never discuss my clients per se, but let's say, oh, here was an interesting topic. What do you think about that? And quite often, if it's something that is new to me or somehow interesting, I use it as a topic for our discussion and say, hey, where do we stand on this one?
Okay.
So I think I'm learning quite a bit from that.
From it, yeah.
Also, seeing different varieties, how people can take things, what can happen. I'm very grateful to all my clients. They're an amazing source of inspiration and new thoughts.
And how, if I come into a therapy like this, or as a couple comes into a therapy like this, is there like is it a long process? Is there homework? I mean, what's the cycle here? I mean,
so it really depends on why they come and when.
And is it the same there as with the regular couple therapy? Do you feel that they're coming too late?
Interesting question. Yeah, a bit too late. Because it's such a sensitive topic, they are quite shy to discuss it before it's necessary. And I can't really say there's no standard. There are some couples that we worked with on just a few sessions, and all they needed was some information, basically, because we don't always have the right information, or what they needed was just a safe space where they can tell their partner something that's important to them and find the right words, because sometimes at home it can be very it can lead into an argument, for example, or some hurt feelings. And really the psychotherapy office, it provides a safe space for many where they can open up, but also close the topic and then go home a little freer. But that being said, the cooperation can also be months or maybe a year. Depends how narrow we specify the topic that they're working on.
Oh. And have you ever had a session with someone or with a couple where it just went crazy? That, like, they ran out or something, or they started fighting?
Yep. Yeah. The fighting that happens because we are repeating the same things that we do at home. We can repeat there as well in the office. But there I'm trying not to let them get into the very same fight they've had so many times. So I would rather stop them and make them redo it and really listen to each other, or, many other techniques. But a part of therapeutic process are intense emotions sometimes. So they do have their rightful place and space there. We're trying for the emotions to be allowed where they belong.
Yeah, fascinating. You mentioned earlier that some of the clients come and they have some desires about, let's say, a different structure of a relationship. I guess you're referring to an open relationship. Now I know that you have a personal experience of that yourself. Now, when we say the word open relationship, what does that mean?
It means that the couple agrees, or, well, no, it gets tricky already. So the people involved, they agree that there will be more people involved, either sexually or romantically as well. They can limit it to a primary couple and then there are other secondary couples, or there can be many people involved on a same level without the hierarchy. So the overarching name for it is consensual non-monogamy. That covers open relationships, polyamory, many different terms that people use. Sluthood, for example, there is a great book on this, Ethical Slut, and yeah, they introduce this this word slut as and identifying themselves as being free. And I love the quote from this book that says, "Sex is good and sex is nice and pleasure is good for you." That's how they explain that you don't need any other reasons for wanting this. Really, it's funny. And the way it works is that whoever is involved needs to give their full consent to whatever will be happening next. Now, here comes a very usual, let's say, argument or a place where people get insecure, like, oh, can you really fully agree with that? Isn't one from the couple always just pushed towards this option? But I think that as long as we believe in free will and that we can decide, then we are able to give this consent.
So that is important that both partners in the, let's say, the core relationship are, that they are both happy with that
happy
situation.
with that is probably a nice word for it. And yes, there can be a core relationship or not. It can also mean that I would be dating 3 people and have non-core relationship with any of them, and they would be on the same level. Or I can have a primary partner and then some secondary partners, or whatever other setting.
Mm-hmm. And is it sexual only, or?
Sometimes it is. For some people, they say that, hey, you can have sex with others, but no romance, no falling in love, and they're okay with it as long as there are no feelings involved. Mainly if we speak about there being a primary couple that opens up their relationship. So there is this option. Nevertheless, I think the feelings connected to having sex with someone are very hard to avoid. If you start seeing someone, as you see them more than once, and it's nice and it's good, you usually develop some feelings for them, and it's perfectly natural. Then I think it's a good topic for discussion. Why am I feeling endangered by these feelings? How can they be difficult for me? And that's where jealousy comes. And we might need to start working with these unpleasant feelings we start having. And I think that just because we get jealous, it's not a sign of this not working, but we should pay attention to them. What is this feeling telling me? How can my partner help me out here? What can I do for myself here? And then it goes back to responsibility, that if we feel that we are responsible for our own feelings, then we can also do something about the jealousy.
And like in a relationship like this, would there be like rules of engagement that, like, yeah, you can, I don't know, you can meet this person but not more often than this, or you cannot spend the night, or how does this work? Is there an agreement?
I have not encountered a written agreement, but
that would be in the next podcast, the legal podcast.
The BDSM podcast, maybe. There you can sometimes sign agreements. I think the important thing is that when you say no to monogamy, which has many rules that we are not even aware of, you are in a very new territory, right? Nothing is set in stone, and you can do everything by yourself. That can be a little frightening as well, because what do you do when you can do anything? But the couples, they usually figure out agreements that they need to make. First, they usually make more, because it gives us safety. It gives us the feeling that we have things at least a bit under control. Sometimes they end up with less rules, really. But the rules are usually around time, because that's if we say that love is not a limited resource, we can love more people simultaneously, and loving one doesn't mean loving the other less. That's usually at the heart of those values as well. Then the resource that is limited, though, is time.
Yeah. So, what are the other rules, Eva, that are important in this?
It's usually how we treat information. For example, if I'm telling my partner that I have met somebody or that I'm planning on meeting on somebody, do we discuss that up front? Do we need to have an approval, or I don't need an approval? To what level of detail my partner wants to be informed or they feel comfortable with. And so that would be that. How much into the details we go. And there are also couples who say, don't ask, don't tell. It's okay that it's happening, but I don't really want to know much about it. It's your privacy. So that it would be on one side of the scale. On the other are partners who discuss into big detail, and maybe some of them even take some pleasure in discussing these other partnerships. So a different set of rules, for example, is around public appearance. Is it okay to be seen with some other partner out in the street or in I don't know, in a cinema or someplace else? Do we tell our friends? Do we tell our parents and colleagues at work? So how we treat this, towards our other parts of life.
The connections, yeah.
How open we are about our open relationship, and that differs. And usually also it changes in time. So people start at some place and it develops throughout months or years or phases of the relationship. It can also change, and at some point they can realize that, hey, maybe right now we need to close this because, I don't know, we're having a baby and the woman might need more security and more stable environment for some period of time.
And and what about like this with regards to this motherhood, marriage, and that as an institution? I mean, how does that work? I mean, like, can you go through those phases of you come into a relationship, you tell your partner that, okay, I want to have it open, he agrees or she agrees, and then you move on, like you buy the house, you have the kid, you get married, and do all the standard stuff. Can you do all this with something else kind of going on the side?
I think it very much depends on your capacity, if you can handle all those roles. And then we get back to the time. But to answer your question, I know people who live like this for decades now, who've been in an open relationship for a very long time throughout different phases of the marriage and through the kids, etc. But I also know of couples that opened up their marriage and it broke them up. Basically, we could say that they suddenly have had an influence that shaked up the relationship way too much. So this is a really personal thing, and takes me back to the consent, right? The fact that you agree to something at one stage doesn't mean that the agreement stays throughout
Forever.
years. You need to renew that. Like, is this still okay for us at this phase of our relationship?
And how about like if you have these two partners, do they meet? I mean, can they be somehow under the same roof and one big happy family?
Yes, they can. That is also what the rules are concerned with. Sometimes that's one thing I forgot. People sometimes limit the the candidate pool, we would say, yeah, it's okay that you have other partners, but let's not hook up with people from work, for example, or from our mutual friends, because it might be uncomfortable for them, or because they would be afraid that the relationship can grow into something bigger if you're meeting somebody on a daily basis. And if you go with the don't ask, don't tell policy, then obviously you don't want to know about the other people. But also there are people who say, hey, if there's somebody important in your life, I want to know who they are, because, they do influence our relationship as well. So it's not uncommon that they would meet. And when you accept that you are dating people who are nice, and you trust that your partner wouldn't date some asshole, then why not meet them? You might as well become friends. And that happens quite a bit.
Yeah, it must be horrible to discover that your boyfriend or girlfriend has chosen to date an asshole when you're in an open relationship. But it's a taboo topic, I guess. I mean, it kind of goes against a lot of the values that we are being told by our parents and by the system and media and society in general. Do you see, I mean, have you seen that in your business and in your life, that about how open can you be about this, like how is that?
Yeah. So generally, yeah, we're still a traditional society, right? And values such as faithfulness is still very important for people, and they're scared by the idea of this not being a must. I would say what I see is that there are people for whom, when you ask them, and I do ask in therapy, so you're a monogamous couple, are you? And they're, of course. And I ask it, so, and did you ever discuss that? And they say, no, it goes without saying.
It's a default setting.
It's the default setting, exactly. So usually we have a blind spot on the fact that it's not the only option presented. And what I see is that some people just plainly say, hey, those people who are interested, they are just cheaters. So they put it into one bucket with all infidelity, and don't really differentiate the fact that this is upon agreement, because they can't simply imagine that they would be okay with it. That they say, oh my God, this is just so far from my idea of relationships that I simply don't understand. And I don't blame them. They grew up in a world where partner is one. There's just one partner.
For better or worse.
For better or worse. So the idea of the openness also attacks this. Like, does it mean that you will just leave me hanging whenever a better option comes? But I see with, again, younger generations who are influenced by maybe media, there are now movies, there are series. It's becoming a part of mainstream culture almost, that the option is there. So they're being more open about it, interested. They ask questions. They're more curious and try to find out, so how does it work? How come that this works for somebody? Make me understand. Instead of then just stopping it right at front by our, I would say, now I can't find the right word. That we just stop it right away because
at the door.
Yeah,
we don't even open.
The idea is too threatening to even start contemplating. So,
but it's and I was actually thinking about this also in the context of what you're saying with the younger generations and the fact that over the last decade or so, there has been globally at least a huge change towards more diversity when it comes to sex and and gender definitions and things like this, and it kind of made me wonder whether this whether monogamy would kind of be one option, and then polyamory or what you call the consensual non-monogamous relationship would become just one of the forms, that this can become part of the social fabric. There might be two dads and one mom in a home, or two moms and one dad, or two dads and two moms, and that like if we look at what's happening, then we have religion is kind of fading out, and a lot of the kind of older values are being pushed aside in some way. So maybe this will just be one of the ways after 20-30 years.
I think that accepting these other alternative forms of being, it comes with information, with the fact that we start hearing about it, it becomes normalized. So in this way, yes, I think it will be more accepted as one of the options. But then the question is, the fact that we see these options, does it mean that we are neutral towards them, or maybe we think that one is a lesser option or comes for all the bad reasons? And there I'm not sure. I think the values saying, oh, this is wrong, are still pretty in place. And seeing the trend now towards maybe more conservative side. We're hearing a lot of populists nowadays. So I would not even be surprised if the freedom we've got right now would be a little limited in the future. Or
that's a political fear. That's a political threat there.
The rhetorics of one right way.
But in the end, I mean, if this form of a relationship makes a person happy, then why would that be an issue? I mean, in the end, it's not harming anybody else.
Oh, that's my wish, that we don't even need to name it and, name 320 types of gender, that we would just accept people for who they are and their relationship structure for what that is, without really needing to put a label on it. But there, I think, or my personal opinion is that the non-monogamous version of relationships is not necessarily better. Also, the research shows that people who are in such relationships are not happier or more sexually satisfied. They're just regular folks.
Yeah. So it's not the magic pill.
No, it's not the magic pill. No. I think that sometimes people confuse that. Oh, you can have more partners, everything will be solved. But actually, what I see in practice is that it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
And most of all, it teaches the partners to talk, to first be aware of their feelings and then communicate them to the other partner. So it's
that's the foundation, I guess.
Yeah, I think for this type of relationship to work, there needs to be not just openness with regards to our sex life, but also, or mainly in our communication. So these couples are usually very well-trained communicators, and that can be useful also in different spheres of the relationship or life.
The ability to solve issues together and so on. So if you were to advise anyone who is interested in kind of getting into this, or harbors these dreams in their heart and wants to open up the relationship, and what would be is there some one golden rule?
One golden rule. Take your time. Don't rush these decisions, especially if you already are in a relationship and want to introduce that as a change, and it is a quite dramatic one. Then don't push anybody into anything. If you're not certain that the other person is okay with that, then just slow down or stop and take some more time, and speak about the why. Your personal philosophy. Why is this an attractive option for you? That comes with very deep questions like what love is. What do you seek from relationship? why do you want to be with me?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I want to be with you? Why are we together? And be very honest about it.
So honesty and communication, and take it slow. So what's the biggest mistake that you can do? I guess that's being unhonest, fast, and non-talkative.
Non-talkative. The biggest mistake, I would say, expect that you won't make any mistakes, because you will.
Mm-hmm.
You
that
will.
you think it won't be a smooth ride.
I'm not sure if smooth is the right word. I mean, if we are accepting mistakes as part of the process, the learning process and the change, and also part of life, then we'll be way more able to name it, to stop making mistakes and take it here with us and discuss what happened. So accept that they're part of life. Because you will make mistakes. You will hurt yourself or your partner along the way. But this is not exclusive just for open relationships, right? That is for all relationships. And we need to be able to come back and say, hey, I screwed up. I think I did this wrong. What do you think about that? And face the consequences of your actions.
And if people are curious about this and want to know more, is there any literature, or is there any place to go to? Like like is there like an information center for non-monogamous?
Yeah. So there's the Bible of non-monogamy that I mentioned, a book called The Ethical Slut, written by 2 authors from the US who are already aged ladies, and they probably started in the age of 60s. So it's interesting to see their take on it, also from a much longer tradition, because they've been living it for years. So this is a good resource. Then if you're interested to speak to some person who is live, maybe a therapist or a counselor, then Googling it. I know that for Prague, for example, there's a Facebook group called Polyamorous Relationships. It is in Czech. And they have meetups every now and then. So there you can come and talk to other people who live this way of life and discuss and maybe share some experience and best practices and their personal take on how to do this right. I think that's very useful. Whenever you can talk to somebody with a personal experience and ask the questions, that helps a lot. But then also popular culture offers some options, such as You, Me, Her series on Netflix, or some episodes of their series called Love.
Okay, well, that's great. We're gonna kind of put the stopper on the sex talks now. Getting to an end here, but I was curious. So you're working on your PhD now, right?
That's right.
And what's the topic?
Well, surprisingly, it's sex psychology, because that's really my field of expertise, where I want to learn more and be a better at service to my clients. And what I'm currently working on is a research on how COVID and the quarantine and various measures connected to this situation of pandemic, how does it influence people's relationships and sex lives?
So it's a very relevant topic.
It's very relevant and very interesting.
And what are kind of what have you found out so far?
Well, the results are very preliminary, and I can't really fully, tell you the numbers and guarantee. But the trend that I saw just by looking through the data is that for about a third of the couples, when we look at partnered couples, it didn't influence their sex life at all. 1/3 was influenced to worse. They say our sex life is worse now. We have less frequency. We're less satisfied. And what's interesting is that they say it's mainly because of stress-related reasons. They say we have more stress, we work more, we need to take care of the kids, so the roles, they overlap, so they have less time, more tired, and that leads to not being in a mood for sex. And that third that said our sex life got better, they say, oh, we have less stress because we can stay at home, we don't have to commute to work, we are together all day long, so we can have sex during the day when we have higher energy and not late in the evening when we return back from work, which is the usual for many couples. So I find it funny that there is no linear line of influence. It really depends on what your what your life looks like and how you got influenced. If you're, for example, a nurse and you have to work a lot more, then it'll be a very different picture than when you're home officing and having a nice rest.
Yeah. But talking about this, I would somehow, I would somehow have thought that the effects were more negative because of this being in some sort of a constant fear. I mean, that's my theory. I feel that we are being kept in fear for limited reasons. And so I would have thought that had a negative effect. So it's interesting to hear that it's split like this. But
well, you see that people, they might be stressed, and for some, sex is an effective coping mechanism with stress. Yeah. It gives you relief. It makes you relax. It connects you with your partner, and you can share. So it can also be something that makes you stronger. An antidote to stress, let's say.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how this, research turns out. I'm sure it's going to be published at some point. Other things, you were giving some seminars.
Yep. My friends, Eliška Remešová and Markéta Šetinová, they run this online webinar called Partnership Academy, and they focus on relationships. First, we've got 5 topics: how to meet a partner, beginnings of relationships, and then also crisis. And the topic that I cover is sex, and how to be successful and happy with your sex life in the beginning of the relationship, but also in a long run.
And where is this? Is this an online thing that is like every week, or is it?
It is an online thing. We just ran second run of this, and it is actually finished today. But so far we had a great success, and it's interesting for people. They say it's nice. So we'll be probably doing it again.
Oh, that's great. And if people want to follow you or follow some of the things that you're involved in, is there any webpage, social media, or anything like that?
So I'm very bad with my social presence. I don't want to split my attention.
I know that.
But I do have a website. It's my name. It's ivarolederová.cz, where I inform about these things. And also what I think might be interesting, we have with my colleague Eliška this product called Máme sex. It means we have sex, basically. And it's a year-long guide to make your sex life better. It's focused on couples who've been together for some time and they want to spice it up a little, or bring something new, or maybe just reconnect after some time. And via 12 monthly letters, they're being given hints and ideas on what they could be doing together. And I think it's very useful because then, you know, it's not coming from one or the other, but it comes from like a neutral third party. So sometimes for people it's easier to start doing something when it comes from a neutral place.
It's more acceptable.
Yes, it's more acceptable when it's not one asking the other to do something.
Okay, that's great. And your therapy, you do Czech and English, I guess.
Yeah, I work both in Czech and in English. Currently, I prefer face to face, but let's see what the quarantine and pandemic brings. Yeah. And maybe I'll switch to online again, as I did before.
Okay, that's you have a lot of stuff on your plate.
I do. Yeah.
Thanks for coming, Iva. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's good. The rest of you guys, thanks for listening. Please subscribe to my podcast, share it with your sister, tell your uncle about it, and review me with your top review. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. My name there is Midlife Crisis Warrior. I also have a Facebook page called The Bunker. How the hell did we end up here? That's it for the day, and I'll see you around. Take care. Bye.